Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime studio. The government has instituted a new Unified Pension Scheme, or UPS, in which central government employees will get guaranteed the average of 50% of their last drawn basic salary as pension once they retire. Now, this is the same provision that used to exist in the old pension scheme, which of course was discontinued. Now, the critical difference between the new unified pension scheme and the old pension scheme is that there is a corpus that will fund these pensions. It'll be a contribution of 18.5% from the government and a contribution of 10% from the employee side. And yet, the opposition is saying that this is yet another rollback from the government. This is basically going back to the old pension scheme after the bluster of the new pension scheme failed. And in state election after election, this became a big talking point issue. Now the Modi government has done yet another U-turn. And the opposition is painting a broader context to this, saying that look at some of the other decisions that have been taken in the last few weeks since the return of Modi 3.0 to power. The scrapping of the lateral entry scheme because it would in the withdrawing of the broadcast bill because it had led to a lot of flack with both publishers as well as some of these new age digital companies. And then, of course, referring the Waqf bill to a standing committee of parliament, something that the Modi government has been loath to doing, at least in the first two terms. So the opposition's intention is Modi, unlike its previous two iterations, is now faced with the hard task of taking along both allies and its foes. Therefore, they are saying that this is a U-turn Sarkar. The government, on the other hand, is saying there's nothing wrong in listening to varied voices, whether they are from within government, that of allies, or whether they are from the opposition. But first, the story so far.
सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट जो आज के इस फैसले का बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण पार्ट है वो है कि कर्मचारियों पर इस स्कीम का भार नहीं पड़ेगा।
There is no change or U-turn from the NPS. You could call it an improvement in the NPS scheme.
इस पेंशन स्कीम से आपने देश के अर्धसैनिक बलों को निकालकर बाहर कर दिया।
पुरानी पेंशन का जो स्कीम था वही लागू करना चाहिए, ये कांग्रेस की मांग है।
और उस फैसले के बाद आप देखेंगे कि न्यू पेंशन स्कीम ये भी लागू रहेगी और यूपीएस भी लागू रहेगी। जिसको यूपीएस ज्यादा फायदा दिखता है वो यूपीएस को अपना।
All right, so I want to do a straight-up comparison of these three pension schemes and what it entails, A, for central government employees, what it means for the government exchequer, and of course, what does it mean for you and me, the tax-paying public. In the old pension scheme, 50% of basic pay, as was drawn at last by the employee before his or her retirement, was paid as pension. In the new pension scheme, there was no fixed pension post-retirement. In the new unified pension scheme, the government has gone back to 50% of the average of 12 months basic pay to be paid as pension. The critical difference between the old pension and the now unified pension is that in the old pension scheme, the payment was to be made entirely by the government treasury. There was no corpus of funds to make that payout. In the new pension scheme, the government's contribution was 14% of the basic salary. In the unified pension scheme, the government's contribution has been raised to 18.5%. The employee's contribution is at 10%. In the old pension scheme, there is no deduction from the employee's salary. So there was no corpus, no contribution from the employee's end as far as building this pension payout is concerned. In the new pension scheme, there was a 10% of basic plus monthly DA that was deducted. The same thing remains in the unified pension scheme. It's 10% of basic monthly as well as DA deduction. In the old pension scheme, the pension was transferred to family members, whoever was the nominee, after the death of the employee. Under the new pension scheme, the family gets pension if the employee dies during service. In the unified pension scheme, the family will get up to 60% of the pension amount after the death of the said employee. In the old pension scheme, dearness relief adjustment was made after every 6 months. In the new pension scheme, there was no adjustment for inflation. The pension was static. It would be a singular figure over a period of time. In the unified pension scheme, there is inflation indexation for serving employees. So, the question is, on this pension scheme, then the lateral entry scheme, then the broadcast bill, has the government gone around in circles? Has it gone and made a series of U-turns? That's the allegation, the charge from the opposition. The government, of course, holding forth. Let me now open this up to our panelists. Shehzad Poonawalla, national spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us. Sanjay J, author and political analyst with sympathies to the Congress party. Smita Prakash, editor of ANI, and Rashid Kidwai, senior journalist, also joining us. Shehzad Poonawalla, so the contention of the opposition is the unified pension scheme, the new UPS as you're calling it, is simply old wine in a new bottle. You're basically going back to the old pension scheme, which is a guaranteed assurance of 50% of basic salary drawn by that said employee to be given to him or her as pension after superannuation.
First of all, Zaka, thank you for having me, and it's good to have you back on your 9 p.m. slot. But Zaka, when did an improvement start becoming a U-turn? Every government scheme, every law, in course of time, you find successive governments making improvements, adjustments, changes, so that more people and their suggestions can be included. For instance, in this particular case, today we have a situation where we've created two infrastructures. One is the UPS infrastructure, where you have an assured pension, you have an assured family pension, you have an assured lump sum payment, you have an assured minimum pension, and you have an inflation indexation. If somebody wants to opt for this infrastructure, they go here. If they want the other one, the NPS, they can continue to do that and be in that particular structure. Though both options are being given. A U-turn is when on a topic like this, where the Congress party used to keep saying OPS, OPS, you remember they ran their entire election campaign, OPS, 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 and I have greatest regard for my good friend Sanjay, but there's no official spokesperson of Congress, because they are the ones who actually did a U-turn. Zaka, in 2024 manifesto, I searched with magnifying glass, microscope, binoculars, everything at my disposal. I could not find OPS mentioned in their manifesto. And by the way, where has been the OPS implemented in Telangana? Where was the OPS implemented in Karnataka fully? Where has the OPS been implemented fully in Himachal? And if anybody has done a U-turn, it is the Congress party. You remember what they used to say about NPS? Here is a statement. Reviving old pension scheme is a bankruptcy recipe. Mantek Singh Ahluwalia while backing NPS. Raghuram Rajan, NPS is a good scheme, and then he goes on to say converting new pension scheme into old is a no-go area. Manmohan Singh said pretty much the same thing. Praveen Chakravarti, schemes like OPS will only exacerbate the gap between rich and poor states. This means that if anybody has done a U-turn on this, like they did on GST, like they did on Rafale, like they did on the farm laws, is the Congress party. And therefore, with as much respect I have for Sanjay J, who's a suspended Congress leader, the official Congress leader is missing on your show, Zaka. That itself shows
Sanjay J, there are 23 lakh central government employees. The total outlay as per the Union Budget 23-24 and the cost to the public exchequer for central government employee pensions was 2.3 lakh crores. If you were to go to the old pension scheme, which envisaged no corpus, no funding either from the government side or from the employee side, that figure would have doubled. In this case, by having 18.5% contribution from the public exchequer and 10% contribution from the employee, the government is saying the only additional burden, if employees were to opt for this unified pension scheme, will only be an additional 6,000 crores. So, first of all, as Shehzad is saying, it's not a U-turn. And second of all, the extra cost to the exchequer is just 6,000 crores.
Zaka, good evening. You know, just to borrow from my friend Shehzad, because he used the word suspended very often, if you do the comparison, and I need to congratulate you for actually doing a very fair and a very correct, accurate and a dispassionate comparison of the three schemes. Anybody can see for themselves that Mr. Modi's government was suspending the employees of India's government from the tallest tree by the thinnest thread, making them so financially insecure about their own future. Here is my point. The reason why Mr. Modi's government is now doing these classic U-turns, including on pension, is because they realize that they will be superannuated soon enough if they don't discontinue with their programs. Now, as somebody who's a student of economics, let me tell you this. Look at the larger context, Zaka. India is seeing a very severe, shall we say, job crisis. Public sector jobs are not being filled. You can see how the agitations are happening all over the country on jobs. Now, the problem is that India's population will start aging at sooner rather than later. Already, Mr. Modi's government has destroyed the demographic dividend story. Now, if government employees don't get the comfort of having a stable post-retirement income, what do you want them to do? Firstly, they're not as well paid as the private sector. They don't have huge investments in land or real estate or gold or, in tax havens as most of Mr. Modi's friends do. So here is the larger point that, this excuse that, the government will be overburdened. Look at what the number you have correctly shown. The government has to spend only 6,000 crores more as a budget outlay, and it gives a comfort today for those who opt for the UPS scheme, which is a desperate attempt to hang on to what they created, the coattails of they created, and yet tell the people that have brought the old pension scheme back. That is not true, because other than the fundamental basic pay to be paid, they have actually still kept the burden on the pensioner to still be part of the process. Can you imagine in the NPS, they were not even allowing families to get access to the funds of the person who died. I mean, how callous and cold and extremely cynical can this government be?
Okay.
And I'm glad it has been challenged. It's an electoral rout for the BJP if they didn't do it.
So let me ask Smita Prakash, it's not just about OPS or UPS. The issue, Smita, is that for the first time, the Modi government, after returning to office for the third time in the last 3 months, has seemingly gone back on the lateral entry for bureaucrats. The UPSC was asked to take off that advertisement. On the Waqf Board bill, which was introduced in Parliament, which many thought that they would simply pass, like they've done with bills in the past, it was referred to a select committee because some allies had some reservations. The broadcast bill that was doing the rounds, that was circulated, the draft was then summarily withdrawn. And today, just today, Kangana Ranaut, one of their MPs, the BJP MP, has been pulled up saying she has no business to be talking about what's happening to Hindus in Bangladesh. What is going on? The opposition is saying that, look, all of this is proof that Mr. Modi in his third term better get used to how to take everyone along. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, certainly that of allies seems to be the mantra for the third term, something that he didn't have to do in the first 2 terms. That's what the opposition is claiming.
Correct. Zaka, critics of the government will see this pension scheme thing as a U-turn and a rollback of a weak government, just like they will say that about the other schemes which you just spoke about, the Waqf and the others, or Kangana's issue. One, granted, it is certainly a weaker government as compared to what it was in 2019 and 2014. There's no denying that. But those who want to see a positive spin on that will see this as a course correction by a government that has learnt not to be tone deaf because of the sheer numbers that they had, and after the rap on the knuckles that they got in the third term. So I would think that that it is course correction. It is something that the government has perforce learned to do, if you want to say, to be sensitive to what people are giving, telling them. Feedback mechanism is working, and they realize that if they don't do that, it's going to affect them electorally. Whatever tall claims that that might be said that this is being done for the good of the people, yes, it is being done for the good of the people, but a government is always political in nature, especially the kind of democracy that we have in our country, where every couple of months we have elections. And yes, there's no denying that Haryana elections must have been in the mind. There are 3 lakh government employees in Haryana. That's a sizable number, and they will be impacted with the new scheme. So it is assumed that it will have some kind of an electoral impact, positive or negative, that remains to be seen, because whether it will lessen the annoyance or the sheer apathy that the voters have towards the BJP, because if they want to elect the BJP again, that would be a third time around, a hat trick which has never happened. So it's anyone's guess how it will. But there are some activists in Haryana and in Maharashtra who feel that nothing but the old pension scheme will work. They are not willing to accept the new one. And in Haryana, at least, one has heard that agitations are going to happen in full gear. Are they politically backed, the agitations? Of course they are. Because the Congress has promised in Himachal Pradesh they will restore the OPS. It helped them in the 2022 elections. But it didn't help them in Rajasthan, mind you, though they said that. It certainly didn't win them the state. So in Haryana and Maharashtra, it could play a determining factor. And of course, there are many other determining factors as far as elections are concerned. But it is important that the pension scheme found no mention in the Congress manifesto for the Lok Sabha elections. But for the state government elections, it will. And already you're seeing that, state governments some of them have started implementing it. Now, there are, as you mentioned, 23 lakh government employees in the country. They stand to benefit from this UPS. And if all states start implementing them across the board, that means 90 lakh families will benefit. 90 lakh families getting a pension scheme which will come in their favor is certainly something the government must have kept in mind. Whether it helps them politically or not, it is an administrative decision which is good.
So Rashid, one way of robbing the opposition from going after the government is by robbing the issues and their talking points, whether it is on caste, whether it is on this lateral entry business, whether it is on now this OPS versus UPS. Basically, it's also politically astute for a government to go out there and ensure that the opposition has no talking points, because whatever talking points they have are being addressed. So if a government is being responsive, the big accusation against Modi 1.0 and 2.0 were like you're bulldozing your way through with farm laws and other things. But at least in this case, Rahul Gandhi raises the issue of no reservation in the lateral entry ad. The next day it's changed. So now Rahul Gandhi has no issue to attack the government with. He has to find a new issue.
So Zaka, this is a one way of looking at it, but increasingly in terms of optics, Narendra Modi government is looking more like PV Narasimha Rao government or Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, which is like accommodative but without saying it so. The problem with BJP and NDA government is it's a victim of its own propaganda. For 2014 to 2024, the last election, a perception was created that Modi is larger than life. So Modi doesn't listen to all this sort of populist measures or so, but increasingly every decision of his, whether you call it a U-turn or kind of realization of realities or robbing the opposition agenda, end of the matter is this is also clear afterthought. This United Pension Scheme was not there in the BJP NDA manifesto also. So they are increasingly doing to accommodate, and this purpose of accommodation is going to weaken Mr. Modi politically, regardless of that outcome. What happens in Haryana and Maharashtra and all those state elections, Mr. Modi is no longer in public perception is seen as someone who can withstand the kind of populist things or who can go against the tide. You look at all the editorials that are being written today. Where have reforms gone? So these are the challenges. Mr. Modi will find it. You can go on justifying it. In India, the best part is nothing is settled. Political parties have different yardsticks when they are in opposition and when they are in government. Look at that, pension thing with the government. If Congress comes back, and in Congress, as Shehzad was saying, there are a lot of people like even Chidambaram and Praveen Chakrabarti who are opposed to this old pension scheme. But now it's being used. And one final point, Zaka. Mr. Modi could have used this opportunity if he had called all party meet or some kind of consensus building. But this is something that he doesn't do. So politically, what Mr. Narasimha Rao would have done or Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee would have done, they would have got all the opposition leaders on board. Because remember, nobody is opposing it. People are taking a pot shot at it, but nobody is opposing this unified pension bill.
So Shehzad, the problem is that now the political reality, and this is what Rashid's point is, that the political reality is such that the Modi government, if they want to bring in either big ticket reforms or unpopular reforms or fiscally prudent reforms, they don't have the political elbow room to do that, and therefore they are now having to, take allies along, take the opposition along, whether it is on lateral entry. And I believe lateral entry is a good thing for government employees, that you need specialists. There are certain areas where you need specialists, where you need technocrats, you need to be brought in from the outside. But the government caved in because Rahul Gandhi made an issue, and then Chirag Paswan made an issue, and then within 2 days, the government went back on it. Similarly, on the OPS, we all know how in the Himachal election, for example, in 2022, in the Himachal election, this was said to be one of the biggest issues which turned the election on its head, that the Congress promised OPS. Whether or not they gave it is a different matter, but it changed the perception of that election. The government, for whatever it is worth, is wary of Haryana, Maharashtra and other states that are going to polls, and a large number of government employees in those states, and therefore does not want to take a chance, especially after what happened on June 4th.
Zaka, I heard your quite long question and also the other three speakers speak, so give me just 45 seconds. Today, Zaka, on your show, I have understood the meaning of the phrase, heads I win, tails you lose. I'll explain how. Modi government had single party majority when it took land acquisition back. It had single party 303 seats when it took farm laws back, which by the way the Congress had promised in its manifesto. At that time, Modi was accused of being a dictator. तब भी मोदी सुनता था तो डिक्टेटर कहलाता था, आज भी मोदी सुनता है तो वीक कहलाता है. ये मोदी करे तो करे क्या? Heads I win, tails you lose, Prime Minister Modi. करे तो करे क्या? It is like this, Saka. Let me explain it in a different way. Rashid ji will understand better. You know, when Prabhu Shri Ram used to take aim at Ravan, Rashid ji, that time he used to pull the arrow on the quiver of the bow. Pulling the arrow on the quiver of the bow does not mean taking U-turn or going back. It means taking aim for reaching a larger distance. Rashid ji, आपको तो ये कहावत समझनी ही चाहिए. And let me explain to you also how. For instance, today Sanjay J says that electoral purpose की वजह से कर दिया, electoral मार पड़ी, that's why we have gone back on this. Sir, please tell me very honestly, Zaka ji, when was the committee set up for this UPS? On 6th April 2023. मोदी जी को 2024 के नतीजे क्या आएंगे ये 6th April 2023 को ही पता चल गया? No, we were always listening. We listened on land acquisition. We listened on other things. We listen now. We listen always. Therefore, the accusation that we are dictatorial, हम किसी की सुनते नहीं, is absolutely wrong. It was wrong then. It is wrong today. But today, conveniently, somebody wants to call us weak. So let me ask you two simple questions. You are very strong, no, Sanjay Jha. You have not hung the employees by their neck from the nearest lamppost, right? Then, when you promised OPS in Telangana, just yesterday the employees have said, junk your contributionary pension scheme and give us the OPS you promised. Where is Rahul Gandhi, may I ask you? Why isn't he implementing OPS in Telangana? Why isn't he implementing OPS fully in Karnataka if he thinks this is the solution? And you have gone back on NPS. You said NPS is draconian. That means Manmohan Singh, for his entire tenure till 2013, set the NPS in position and then started it and implemented it. Was he implementing a draconian infrastructure of pensions? Mr. Sanjay Jha, I at least expect you to be suspended only in position, not in logic.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, respond to that. If the Congress the Congress party has not made any bones about how they won Himachal Pradesh, this was one of the singular reasons why the election turned on its head. But you promised the same thing in Telangana, you promised the same thing in Karnataka. You've not implemented it simply because the math just does not add up. It will literally bankrupt a state if you were to pay the old pension scheme without a corpus of funds entirely from the government treasuries. The Congress knows that, realizes that, and that's why they are not being able to implement it in Telangana or in Karnataka.
Well, firstly, Zaka, let me tell you, they are all in the process of being implemented. Here is the larger point, that this is the beauty of democracy, Zaka. A 56-inch chhati can shrink to 56-centimeter chhati after the election verdict of June 4th, 2024. By the way, if anybody thinks that Mr. Modi's government's several U-turns is because the government has suddenly discovered the beauty or the charm of democratic consensus, let's not fool ourselves. They are being forced to do it. Full credit goes to Rahul Gandhi and the Congress and the India Alliance for putting this government on the map, for the simple reason that they chose to ignore the realities of the economic devastation that India has gone through. This government is on the mat because they have for long been extremely indifferent to the voices of the average common man. And Zaka, that is the truth. You see, one of the things that we tend to ignore is that at the bottom of the pyramid, the India story has ignored large sections of people who don't know what does Mr. Modi talked about when he says 5 trillion economy and the third largest economy. It has no meaning whatsoever. Can you imagine that 50% of people in India don't even get 3 meals a day? 30% of our children are malnourished.
No, no,
Look at the number of
I
people
agree with all of these
poor.
statistics. Your
Just one
statistics
line.
are par for course. But my point is, Sanjay
Just
Jha,
one line.
politically, what does it mean? I mean, the BJP is still in power. Mr. Modi is still very much in power and will likely be through to the end of his term.
You know, Zaka,
It means nothing.
Zaka, let me tell you, we know that a week is a long time in politics. I believe after the state assembly elections are over, Haryana, Maharashtra in particular, we'll wait and see what happens
one
in
line.
Jammu, Jharkhand. You will see in New Delhi a severe earthquake, because if Mr. Modi believes that he can continue to run this government with two allies who are basically waiting and watching the views on the Waqf board. They saw how the UP government had passed the law on, shopkeepers having to display names.
So-
they go the very constituency that TDP and JDU need.
One line.
So far,
So you
we've
are-
not
One line,
heard
Zaka.
anything from TDP or JDU, which seems to suggest that they are not in sync with the Modi government. But quickly, one line, Shehzad, then I need to give closing comments to both
Just
Smita
one
and to Rashid. Yeah.
Well, with all due respect to my good friend Sanjay, I am not holding my breath for his next prediction. He has been predicting the downfall of Modi government in 14, 19 and 24. So I am not holding my breath. But Sanjay said that the OPS in Telangana is in stage of... One second, sir, I did not implement you and I am just getting one line. You said that it is in various stages of implementation, the OPS in Karnataka, Telangana and in Himachal. Sanjay Jaji, because you are a very erudite speaker, I would like you to answer Telangana State CPS Employees Union State President Gangapuram Sthiti Pragna. When is the timeline for implementation of OPS fully in Telangana? Can you please answer that specifically, sir? Because you said various stages of implementation. So clearly a Congress leader is not on this show, but can you please tell us when will it happen by? Karnataka, your government's been in place from May 2023, Himachal from December 2022, Telangana for the last few months. Can you please give us a timeline for the OPS, sir?
Well, to be frank, all I can say at this moment from what I know
Yeah.
is that the government is going to execute everything is promised in its manifesto. In terms of what stage, is it near closure or almost closure? That you'll hear it formally from the
Okay,
government authority.
let me ask Smita Prakash. I mean,
Yeah.
this whole thing about, there'll be a political
Is it like
earthquake after
Garibi Hatao?
Haryana, there'll be a political earthquake after Maharashtra. Does it really have any kind of bearing? Because, look, the only thing that can change the fate of this government is if two allies, both of them in tandem, not one or the other, but both of them in tandem decide to pull the rug from under Mr. Modi's feet. And so far, we're not seeing or hearing anything from either JDU or TDP which suggests that they're already at the end of the rope.
Look, we have seen in our country coalitions, lasting its full term. We've also seen them collapsing within days of getting formed, and right now it shows no signs of being weak. Rashid spoke about Modi brand having gotten weaker, and that people feel that here is a prime minister now who's doing these U-turns, who's not standing by his word and things like that. Yes, Modi of 2014 and a Modi of 2019 certainly has got a shocker in the election verdict of 2024. But the fact is that is brand Modi more important today, or is brand BJP 3.0, which has become NDA 3.0, what is more important for the country? For the country, I think it is a stable government that is more accommodating. What is more important, and if that stable government is more accommodative as compared to what it was in the past, for the people of the country, it is really beneficial. I don't care about political parties. They can say whatever they want to, whether, oh, hamari baat maan li, the leader of our party has got a lateral entry into PMO, which is why what he says is what the PMO is doing. These are kind of social media tropes that one is getting to see. Those are political parties. But if the election has made the BJP or the NDA more accommodative, more sensitive to what the people want, that is a good thing for the people of the country. So it doesn't matter. Do you remember, Zaka, the first term of Modi? What was it that great economists like Arun Shourie used to say, that this is like UPA plus a cow? That's what he used to say. I don't know the exact words, but that's what he used to say, because reforms were slow in the coming. What are we seeing today when state elections are coming on, one after the other? Oh, everybody's promising free electricity, free gas, free cylinder, free bus rides. Everything is coming. Bhupinder Hooda in Haryana has promised 1 lakh jobs in the first year. Where? How? Who's going to implement them? How is it going to come about? Where will the direct recruitment through UPSC? How will it going to happen? Koi farak nahi padta. Just promise everything and anything. We'll see after elections are held.
Okay, Rashid, final word. The point is that, there are governments, there is the political nature of governments. Clearly, it is no one's case, Rashid, that Modi 3.0 will work in the same framework, will work in the same manner as Modi 2.0 did or Modi 1.0 did. But the success and the sign of success, politically speaking at least, of a party or a coalition or a government is in ensuring that varied interests are taken care of, that varied sort of power centers, if you will, are accommodated, and varied groups are taken along. That's truly the essence of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. If that means changing the narrative in Haryana or in Jammu and Kashmir or in Maharashtra, I don't know if it will, but if it means changing the narrative in those states, then so be it. But I don't think the results of those elections are going to materially have any bearing on the continuance of Modi 3.0.
Zaka, I think in politics, survival is very important, but we must remember PV Narasimha Rao completed his term. So was Atal Bihari Vajpayee from 1999 to 2004. But then what happened next? So politically, Mr. Modi's graph, or for the better NDA BJP's graph, is on the decline, and there are no two views about it. And that should worry Shehzad Punewala. It is that Iqbal, the grace of the government, that is falling by the day. In 10 years, 2 U-turns, if you can, so rollbacks, and in 3 months, 6 U-turns. So there is a world of difference, and no amount of sort of, spin would work, because, Janta hai, sab janti hai.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how this story plays out. Thank you very much to all our guests. I want to move on to the second piece of news, and an equally pressing one that we're focusing in great detail here on Brass Tacks and all through the day here on CNN News 18. The Malayalam film industry is really going through a massive change. It is really under fire after the stunning revelations of the Hema panel report, which revealed that there was a systemic culture of sexual harassment and abuse of leading women actors. After the explosive charges from the female artist, the Kerala government has now constituted a special investigation team which has women police officers as well. Some of the topmost icons of the Malayalam film industry are in the dock, and that includes famous director Ranjit, who has quit as the chief of the Kerala Chalachitra Academy. This after a Bengali actor, Srilekha Mitra, accused him of sexual harassment during auditions for a film back in 2009. Now Srilekha Mitra has filed an official complaint with the police in Kochi. Along with Ranjit, another noted actor, Siddiq, has also resigned as the General Secretary of the Association of Malayalam Artists, or AMMA as it's called. Again, there were sexual assault allegations against Siddiq from a female actor. Siddiq has in fact now filed a counter-complaint against the victim, against the survivor, calling this a plot to malign his image. Another Malayalam actor has levelled harassment allegations against actor Mukesh, who's also now a CPIM MLA. The victim in this case has claimed that Mukesh physically and verbally abused her on the sets of a movie back in 2013. The report points to a powerful group of men within the film industry that's been targeting young female actors, some of them for years now, demanding sexual favors in return for breaks in big movies. Here are some of the revelations made by the Hema Committee. Number one, that female actors are told to make adjustments, quote unquote, and compromises. The second thing that's been revealed in the Hema Committee is that female actors are asked to make themselves available for sex on demand. It also goes on to say that women in cinema feel unsafe to be staying alone in hotels that have been arranged for them by either the movie star or the producer concerned. Also, that intoxicated men who are working in cinema oftentimes target female artists in their hotel rooms. Intoxicated men repeatedly bang at the hotel room doors in which female stars are housed. Repeatedly, they bang those doors at night, causing an inconvenience to those female stars. It also goes on to say that many male and female artists say they are publicly threatened if any of them threatens to spill the beans on what's going on with a senior artist in the industry. Also, that various remarks of a sexual color, innuendo, are all made in public against female artists. That there are 10 to 15 top individuals in the Malayalam film industry who constitute a power group and who ensure that nothing happens to the A-listers. Also, that if the power group is not pleased with someone, then he or she is prevented from doing good work. And that such unauthorized bans on these individuals happen because of non-compliance. So, let's bring you up to speed with these damaging revelations and what kind of fallout. It's almost like a mini revolution, apparently, that's happening within the Malayalam film industry. One by one, big name after big name is falling to some of these very stunning charges that have been made by women actors.
Sexually abused. It was a trap.
He was touching my hand, my bangles, and it was just an innocent gesture maybe. But I wasn't comfortable because I was not in that friend zone with him.
The organization that's been at the forefront of exposing these misdeeds among senior actors in the Malayalam film industry, it's called the Women in Collective Cinema, WCC. I'm now joined by Ms. Sangeeta Janachandran, who's a member of WCC. Thank you very much for joining us. Is there some kind of an unsaid code of silence that exists in the Malayalam film industry, which seems to have been forced on female artists? It's fueled this culture of rampant sexual abuse.
The thing is, I personally believe that acceptance is the first step to change. Acknowledging something that, yes, this exists is the first step to change. In that way, though, after, we all have been waiting for this report, which was submitted in 2019, December. We are in 2024. So it has taken these many years for this to come out. And in the light of it, we do hope that there is documented and factual evidence to the kind of imbalances, especially pertaining to gender, that is prevalent in this industry. And cinema being such an influential, empowering medium, we do believe that it will resonate to all industries across. This will be a starting point to change.
I do want to ask you, and you said this a moment ago, the fact that this report was given to the government sometime in 2019 and today we're in 2024, how do you react to that? Because no action was basically taken since then. In fact, the SIT has just been formed in the last few days. Are these bigwigs in the industry, the ones who are being protected, quote unquote, so important, so politically protected that even the government can't seemingly take any action against them?
I think more than naming and shaming the perpetrators at the moment, as a collective and also as a community, what we demand and what we urge from the government is kind of accountability and an intrusion, timely intervention at least, and transparency for the procedures. It's almost been a week since the report has come out officially now. And we would really like to know and understand how the government is going about it to bring about systemic change. And we should, it's about time we focused on the solution and the implementation part of it, because we have been discussing problems for the past 7 years. WCC was formed in 2017 and we are in 2024. And I think it's been long overdue that we focus on a solution driven approach to this.
I do want to ask you, what does this also mean, these revelations that have now come out, and it's sort of felled some really big names, Ranjit and Siddiq, etc. What does it also say about the failure of various artist associations, whether it is Amma or the director associations, the producer associations, the fact that these associations should have protected the women who came forth and it did nothing? What does it say about these associations?
I would actually also like to bring the attention back onto issues beyond sexual violence, because it is one of the issues that the report is also discussing, right? It is a very serious, very pertinent issue, but there has also been a lot of focus going on the pay parity, on issues like workplace sanity, basic hygiene facilities that are denied, about the food, from starting from the food to accommodation to hygiene to everything, starting from having an internal complaint committee in all film sets to having a basic agreement given to all technicians. These things are denied. Basic rights are denied in most of the locations. I think those issues also has to be addressed. It needs to be addressed as a whole. I think beyond the controversial and the most sought after topic of sexual abuse, there is a lot of abuse happening, because abuse is not just physical, it can be financial, emotional, verbal, a lot of things. And also it's about time we change the narrative, because I've been following the discussions online and offline about this since the report came out. People are asking, why didn't she speak up when it happened? Why is she speaking up now? And why didn't she leave the job? If it's so uncomfortable, why are you not leaving the job? Maybe people, most of the cases, people don't have the privilege, don't have the financial privilege to leave their job. They can only insulate themselves and continue working. They have to coexist with the perpetrators. Sometimes they fear losing work, that they keep quiet. Now that there is a kind of a second version or a second wave of Me Too that is happening all over again, a lot of survivors are feeling that a lot of them are feeling empowered. A lot of them are gathering strength from the solidarity that this report and this whole findings and recommendations are giving them.
All right, Sangeeta, thank you very much for joining us, and more power to your Women in Cinema collective, which of course has been at the forefront of all these exposures of these various big name artists, whether it is a Ranjit or a Siddiq. In fact, this whole thing started way back in 2016-17 when a leading actor at that time, a leading actress at that time, was physically assaulted by a leading star back at that time. His name is Dileep. He was then subsequently arrested. He had in fact hired rent-for goons to try and go and physically assault her and intimidate her, which they did. But the actress stood up to all of those physically intimidatory tactics, and the case against Dileep was lodged. He was even arrested for a brief while. That continues to go on in the courts, but that is what started, and that is what first exposed the deep rot in the Malayalam film industry, for an industry which gives such classic movies which are really at the cutting edge, which push the envelope just in terms of storytelling. It is really a shame that this underbelly, this almost unsaid bro code, it took such tragic circumstances, first in the Dileep instance, and then of course in these various cases of survivors who have come forth. It is indeed tragic that it had to come down to this for this underbelly, this deep, dark underbelly to be exposed, and the people who are being protected by this tiny cabal of powerful directors, actors, producers and technicians, that cabal needs to be broken. I'm happy and I'm glad that at least the next generation of film stars, from a Prithvi Raj to a Fahad Fasil, etc., are all taking what are considered very progressive stands when it comes to expressing solidarity with the survivors who've come forth and made these exposés. I'm going to take a quick break here on the program. When we come back on the other side, tensions are escalating at the Israel-Lebanon border after the biggest cross-border strikes since the Gaza war began. It is sparking fears of an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah. It started with what Israel calls over 100 aircraft pressed into service for preemptive strikes, largely on the border, the contested border between Israel and Lebanon, which of course for the last year since this war began, the last 10, 11 months since this war began, there have been a barrage of rocket attacks from Hezbollah's side and then retaliation from the Israeli side. So it started with a massive 100 aircraft operation by Israel, a preemptive strike, and then in response, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, in a public address on Sunday said that Hezbollah had fired as many as 350 rockets and drones onto the other side of Israel, including targeting a military camp somewhere in the central part of Israel. But will this lead to a wider regional fallout, or are both sides, at least for the moment, climbing down from the heady rhetoric, from the rhetoric of wider escalatory regional conflict in the wider region? We'll try and explore that in great detail right on the other side of this quick break. Back in 2 minutes.
Explosive findings by the Hema Committee report. Malayalam director Ranjit is quit as the chief of Kerala Chalchitra Academy, and this has happened after Bengali actor Srilekha Mitra accused him of sexually harassing her during the auditions of one of his films back in 2009. Along with Ranjit, noted actor Siddique is also resigned as the General Secretary of the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists following sexual assault allegations raised by a woman actor on August 24th. The allegations had sparked fresh trouble for the Pillai Vijayan government, which is now facing opposition flack on its alleged inaction over the Justice Hema Committee report. The report has revealed instances of harassment and exploitation of women in the Malayalam film industry, and politics is now erupted over the matter, with both the Congress and BJP accusing the CPIM-led government on trying to protect the accused.
मैं मानता हूँ कि ये बड़ी निहायत शर्मनाक बात कि जहाँ महिलाओं के खिलाफ ऐसे अपराध देखने में आए। हमारी संस्कृति क्या है, हमारा इतिहास क्या है? अरे हम तो चाहे ज्ञान हो, चाहे समृद्धि हो, चाहे शक्ति हो, हर चीज़ को स्त्रीलिंग में देखते हैं और उसकी पूजा करते हैं। और यहाँ पे हमारी अपनी बहनों बेटियों के साथ इस तरह का व्यवहार देखने को मिले तो मेरा तो इस मामले पर बोलने को भी मुझे शब्द नहीं मिलते कि कितने कड़े शब्दों का प्रयोग किया जाए।
CNN News 18's Neetu Regukumar spoke with Beena Paul, who's the film editor and a member of the Women in Cinema Collective. Remember, Women in Cinema Collective was the one organization that had many important females from the industry, very, very reputed names, including actors like Parvati, who were part of that collective. They had raised severe allegations of sexual harassment and workplace harassment when it is about the Malayalam film industry. Now, Beena Paul, has in fact spoken about the resignations, these high-profile resignations of not just director Ranjit, but also actor Siddique. Let's take a look.
Two resignations in the morning itself, one by State Chalachitra Academy and filmmaker chairman and filmmaker Ranjit, and Siddique, who is also the General Secretary of the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists. How do you see this resignation as someone who has been in the industry for long and also as a founding member of the Women in Cinema Collective?
Well, what the Women in Cinema Collective has been saying all along is there are many problems. There are systemic problems. Systemic problems includes the fact that people...
Amid fears of an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon, the two sides on Sunday mounted the biggest round of cross-border strikes since the Gaza war began. It started Sunday morning with Israel bombing dozens of sites along the southern border with Lebanon in a preemptive attack. In response, Hezbollah ended up launching hundreds of rockets and drones. Within hours, though, both sides appeared to de-escalate, at least for the moment. But both sides have also signaled that the violence and these dangerous tensions could continue. Hezbollah said its operation is vengeance for the Israeli assassination of a senior commander, and it had finished those operations for the day, but it left open the possibility of more action. On the Israeli side, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that what happened today is not the final word. For weeks now, Israelis have waited in anticipation of a major attack by Hezbollah in retaliation for an airstrike last month in a suburb of Beirut, which killed one of Hezbollah's commanders, Fuad Shukr. Iran, which backs both Hezbollah and Hamas, has also vowed retribution for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas political leader who was on a visit to Tehran. Iran so far seems to be shy of any direct attack at Israel, preferring to use its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, instead. After the Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, which triggered the war in Gaza, Hezbollah began firing frequently on Israel, prompting widespread Israeli retaliation. Repeated strikes, counter-strikes, and threats have forced more than 160,000 people to evacuate on both sides of the border. And that has stoked fears that the conflict would ignite a full-blown regional war, which would pit not just Israel against Hezbollah, but also Israel against its patron, Iran. Before dawn on Sunday, Israel's military used about 100 warplanes to strike more than 40 different launch sites in Lebanon, saying it had prevented a major attack. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 3 people had been killed and 2 others hurt, while Israel said a soldier of its was killed and 2 others wounded during Hezbollah's barrage of rockets. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said in a televised address on Sunday that Hezbollah had carried out more than 300 rocket launches at military sites in Israel, and that would make it the group's largest barrage since the Gaza war. Israeli officials did say that that figure that was given by Hezbollah was somewhat lower. Either way, the attack did very little damage, according to a statement put out by the Israeli military. Analysts say that both Israel and Hezbollah are unlikely to want to endure a war which could devastate both countries and kill thousands, and there is prospectively very little chance of a strategic victory for either side. Hezbollah wants to say that they have registered a response to Israel and now wants to move on from this phase of anticipation of a wider escalation. Both Israel and Hezbollah quickly claimed a victory of sorts. Israel for its pre-dawn preemptive strikes against Hezbollah, and Hezbollah for its subsequent firing of rockets and drones at northern Israel. By Sunday breakfast time, both sides were employing the language of containment. Hezbollah announced that it had completed the first stage of its attack to avenge the assassination of its senior commander, Fuad Shukr. In fact, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that he had spoken with the US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and that the two had discussed the importance of avoiding any regional escalation. All of the reported Israeli targets in Lebanon were within 30 miles of the border. It was focused on thwarting the threat from Hezbollah's rocket and drone arsenal rather than striking the broader infrastructure the terror group possesses. On the other side of the border, Hassan Nasrallah was similarly suggesting that the current round of escalation might be at an end and that Hezbollah was willing to reconsider the reprisals for Fuad Shukr's death as concluded. The United States has sought to prevent any wider regional war, in part by trying to advance a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. But Washington has also deployed 2 of its aircraft carrier groups and a guided missile submarine, both of which to deter Iran and its allies from attacking Israel.
We have been concerned about the conflict escalating into an all-out regional war since October 7th, and we have worked round the clock with partners and allies, moving military assets, engaging in intensive diplomacy, both publicly and privately behind the scenes, to avert that outcome. We continue to work to avert that outcome. And our hope is that the events of last night do not spill out into an escalation that leads to regional war.
The talks on a Gaza ceasefire and the release of hostages resumed as planned on Sunday after senior Israeli and Hamas officials arrived in Cairo and sat down with mediators. Despite a full-bore diplomatic push from the Biden administration, both Israel and Hamas remain far apart on some of the critical issues, leading officials to conclude that any immediate breakthrough is unlikely. Hassan Nasrallah said that Hezbollah waited for 4 weeks to retaliate for the killing of Fuad Shukr to give enough time for negotiators to try and find an elusive ceasefire. While most of Hezbollah's weapons were fired at targets in northern Israel, some were launched at a military site in central Israel, which reflects the growing sophistication of Hezbollah's arsenal. Israeli and American officials said that these ammunitions were drones and that they were all shot down. Nasrallah identified one of the targets in central Israel as the Glilot military base just outside Tel Aviv. It's the headquarters of Unit 8200, which is an elite signals unit which the Hezbollah believe was connected to the assassination of Fuad Shukr. That base, Glilot, lies about 70 miles away from the Lebanese border. Hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel, closely tied to the long-running shadow war between Israel and Iran, have heated up dramatically since the Israel-Hamas war began back in October. Hezbollah has said it was acting in solidarity with Hamas and that its attacks on Israel would stop only when the offensive in Gaza ends. Some Israeli officials have also suggested that Israel could invade Lebanon to push Hezbollah back from the border. And Iran, which is Hezbollah's patron, has still yet to open an account with Israel, blaming it for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, while he was in Tehran. Israel officially took responsibility for the death of Fuad Shukr, but not for that of Ismail Haniyeh. Israel has long been readying for a war in Lebanon and is probably much better prepared than it was on its southern front when Hamas took it by surprise back in October. All in all, both sides, Israel and Hezbollah, seem to be pulling back from the brink of dangerous rhetoric. And hopefully this pulling back is a signal to both the Israeli Defense Forces and to Hezbollah rank and file that neither side is wishing to escalate matters as of now.
Presented by people do not believe that women are supposed to be there in the industry, who have certain attitudes, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So these resignations, I think, I give it to the women who have come and spoken, who have forced this to happen. This is fantastic, and I don't think it should end with this. I think there should be serious attention paid to this, that these are just not one-off things, etc. But more than that,